Well, first there was dictator on day one in the bloodbath narrative. And now there's another disinformation stunt from the media. Donald Trump is out for revenge. Well, after his interview with Sean Hannity this week, the media ran with these headlines. Take a look. Washington Post. Trump says he'd have every right to seek prosecutions of political foes. And there's CNN. Trump again suggests he would try to prosecute his political opponents. But Trump didn't say that. This is actually what he said.
Focus on those that want people to believe that you want retribution, that you will use the system of justice to go after your political enemies.
So, number one, they're wrong. It has to stop, because otherwise we're not going to have a country. Look, when this election is over, based on what they've done, I would have every right to go after them. We can't have this stuff go on, because you know what? When Biden goes out, everyone says bye-bye, and then he gets indicted 2 days later and they go after him.
Yeah, he said it's a terrible thing. And then immediately after Dr. Phil's interview with Trump that aired last night, the media ran with these headlines. Sometimes revenge can be justified. Trump issues chilling threat. Then the New York Times had this to say. Trump says sometimes revenge can be justified, and so on and so forth. You know how it goes. But once again, they left out context. Shocking.
The word revenge is a very strong word, but maybe we have revenge through success. Revenge does take time, I will say that.
It does.
And sometimes revenge can be justified, Phil. I have to be honest. You know, sometimes it can.
What if when you win this election, you said, enough is enough. Too much is too much. This is a race to the bottom, and it stops here. It stops now. They've made a half a dozen or more major attempts to take you off the playing board, and you just said, it stops now. I'll forgive, I'll not ever forget, but I am not going to play this retribution game.
I'm okay with that. I am. I'm okay with that.
But just throw the facts aside. They just simply don't matter, because Democrats want to stoke fear.
It's terrifying. It's frightening. I have a lot of conversations with former colleagues, people who are or were in the intelligence and law enforcement community and may have worked in, the Obama administration, other places. And, people are really trying to assess, what is life going to be like if Donald Trump wins a second term? And on a very personal level, these are torturous discussions with their family members about whether or not they have to leave the country to avoid being unconstitutionally and illegally detained.
Donald Trump, who wants to put them before firing squads, basically. He wants to put them all in jail. He's unbelievable the way he talks about his opponents. I'm telling you, Trump could end up rolling the score. I've got the Congress. I've got the Supreme Court. I own it all. I am a dictator.
Okay, so he wants firing squads. I remember them pulling these mischaracterizations, Ian, when I was at the podium. Jen Acosta, read me the full quote. They don't have the full quote. They don't care about the full quote.
They don't care about the full quote. And watching this, these people look like they're hallucinating. The Trump derangement syndrome has gotten to physical manifestations at this point. But I think the president brings up an important point that needs to be considered. For the longest time, this country, politicians violate the law. Elected officials violate the law. And when they leave office, they didn't get prosecuted. You go back to the late 1990s, early 2000s. In 2000, independent counsel Robert Ray had Hillary Clinton making false statements in the Travelgate investigation. They did not prosecute her. But now we've come into this situation where Russiagate, they started using the official levers of power to start going after Trump. And then once he was out of office, they found a new tack and they executed it. Right. So the question is the next president, if it's President Trump, going to continue this cycle? Or is he going to say, I'm not going to do it, right? But those things, if you don't do it, if you don't look at people that are breaking the law, well, then the process will just continue the next time they get in power. So it is a very tough decision, and it's something that needs to be thought through very thoroughly, because we cannot continue to have the weaponization of the Justice Department and the justice system go after political enemies.
Yeah, and Trump said enough is enough. He has said this over and over again. So what is Andy McCabe scared of? His friends who want to flee the country.
Well, the heaving and the hawing and the bawling and the braying from these Democrats, the cries of danger, danger from these weasels, they're telling you that they think President Trump's going to win. And what they've done is coming back to bite them where the sun doesn't shine. They know that they are screwed, and so screwed, because never has a president and a party and the minions in the media shown greater disregard for the courts, the legal system, and the judicial system. Democracy dies in darkness, and they're shutting out the lights and cutting the power to the home that we know as the United States of America.
Yeah, and there's a great irony here. So you watch Andy McCabe saying he needs to flee the country, or his friends do. Meanwhile, Trump saying enough is enough. But here's the former FBI director suggesting someone may need a jail sentence.
I would ordinarily say it's unlikely in a white-collar offense of this sort, but this is a defendant who's begging for a jail term by taking a flamethrower not just to the judge, but to the entire process and the jury. A judge will take that very seriously into consideration in deciding whether to deter this person and to send a message more broadly. He needs to spend some time behind bars.
I think we need not clarify the defendant he's talking about, but he's talking about Trump there.
Oh, he hates Trump. I mean, he has such a personal, long-standing axe to grind, and that nutless, narcissistic giraffe really has no place in this conversation. I don't want to hear a word from James Comey ever again. And as far as Andrew McCabe, I will buy the U-Haul. I will rent it for him and Amy Schumer. I will pack it up with plenty of snacks and a nice cooler full of beverages and point him right to Canada. It's like, go ahead and leave the country, because you have created an apparatus that, to your point, can be used as political weaponization. And it is wrong. It is a structure that they built and thrived in, and now they're complaining about it. Shame on all of them. And bye-bye.
Bye-bye. It need not be a theoretical exercise for Andy and his friends, because we had 4 years of Trump, and we saw Bill Barr, and we saw Jeff Sessions, who appointed Mueller, who looked into Trump. We've seen an independent DOJ under Trump.
String of real reputable sources that they brought in for those hard-hitting interviews. I don't know where the challenges were on any of those, but it's not the first time that we've heard people claim that they're going to flee the country if Donald Trump is put in office. We've heard it before. I wonder, with all the hee-hawing, I think you said, Dagan, from some in the Democratic Party, you know, they're talking about the major dangers to those who are currently at the FBI, right? Where's the screaming out loud about whether or not somebody might have a terrorist in their backyard because of the border crisis or the affordability crisis that's happening in America right now? There's a lot to be scared of. Russia, China. But the Andrew McCabe thing is pretty rich, as well as James Comey.
Yeah, Caitlin Collins, she was able to book Dracula and Renfield.
Yeah. and Comey went on to say he's not scared of retribution because he has resources. So, you know,
didn't Comey get up in front of America and say all the things that he found that Hillary Clinton did, but we're not going to prosecute?
Right.
Didn't he do that?
That was the same guy, I seem to remember.
Drew that conclusion before they even interviewed her.
That's right.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.